had been a direct shot to the heart that had been by somebody.
All right, as you see there, just yet another witness, again, speaking on what they believe they saw. Again, none of these reports are confirmed. We did want to just make sure that we're continuing to get some listen into those who say that they were there at this shooting as it was happening. And so now I want to bring into the conversation former FBI Special Agent Miguel Clarke. Miguel, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. It's been a very busy last few hours as we're breaking down the very latest as it pertains to the shooting there with Charlie Kirk. From what you've heard so far, as we're just now here entering a new hour, we do know that he was attending an event at Utah Valley University. He was a speaker there, and they believe that there was a huge crowd of people there to attend and watch when this happened, when he was shot. So what is your first take? What should we be looking out for as we're continuing to wait for these details to come into our newsroom?
First thing, they're going to want to secure the scene, if that's at all possible. I heard that there was not really an evacuation order, but some information was provided. Hey, you need to leave campus, that classes have been canceled for the rest of the day. So you got to secure the scene. That's the first thing. Then the second thing, you're going to really start looking for any forensic evidence that's going to be left behind. In the scene, we know there's a gunshot that's taken place. So I'm going to be looking for casings. I'm going to look for anything that the shooter may have left behind, start to get an idea as to how far away the shooter was, what kind of talent and expertise is going to be required in order to be able to make a shot like that reliably and accurately. From what I understand, there was only one shot that was heard or that was recorded and is now being reported. So, that person had to have some degree of training and, at least a weapon platform that allowed for a certain amount of accuracy. Based on the people that I saw at the scene, we're looking at probably at least 40 or 50 yards. That's what it seemed like from the pictures. So that takes a fair amount of talent. That is not something that you're going to be able to do randomly without practice.
And Miguel, I was going to ask, when you're talking about something of this magnitude, Christina
Yes.
mentioned we've got a large crowd that's gathered there. They're very close to Charlie Kirk. He's doing
Yes.
his event that is all about answering questions. People can try to stump him, all of that. And then this happens there. How difficult does it make it for law enforcement? Because it's essentially chaos.
It is going to be chaos, but law enforcement has a lot of experience in responding to these types of things. Does that mean that every bit of evidence that's available to be collected can be or will be collected in this instance? Probably not. That scene would have had hundreds of people in that scene, so they have the ability to have inadvertently impacted some of the potential forensic evidence that the scene would have had if it had been a pristine scene with nobody and no barriers between the shooter and the victim, in this case, Charlie Kirk. But it's going to be a challenge either way.
I have to ask you, Miguel, as we're still continuing to look at this scene that's outside of the hospital, it's really heartbreaking to see the full response there. Really looks like it's an all hands on deck effort. But before this event took place, we do know that Kirk was speaking there at a debate that was hosted by Turning Point USA. The event at UVU had been met with some divided opinions on campus, as it's been reported by the Associated Press. In fact, there's an online petition. We saw it here on Live Now that was calling for from university administrators to bar Kirk from appearing. It received thousands of signatures, but the university did issue a statement last week citing First Amendment rights and affirming its commitment to free speech, intellectual inquiry, and constructive dialogue. In a situation like this, I have to ask you, Miguel, is security going to be up and maybe increased when they know that there are certain people who don't want a certain guest to be there? Is that something that the university likely did ahead of this?
Probably not. This is supposed to be a dialogue, right? And we're not talking about somebody who's called for violence or who's called for the people that he interfaces with. He's not calling for bad things to happen to those individuals. He's engaging in a conversation with people who are willing. Nobody's being forced to attend. So in that type of a scenario, I'm not immediately going to think that we're going to need to increase security at the end of the day. So that's I don't think that there's anything about the event that automatically says that. Now, there's going to be two different perspectives when it comes to this. In higher education, you've got the need to keep people safe and the pursuit of the truth. And depending on where you stand on either one of those issues, you're going to make a priority of either trying to shut things down because you don't want bad things to happen, or saying, hey, we owe our students the ability for them to have additional information and for them to make up their own minds. So I can imagine that security is playing in there, and based on the makeup of the decision makers at the college, I would guess that, well, you can make a guess at the demographic of the decision makers because he was allowed to come and speak.
And I did want to ask you, Miguel, as we continue to learn all of the information here, we see posts on social media that pop up. You have people who say, this is what happened. This is what happened. They post, doctored photos. There's incorrect information. So for law enforcement, how difficult does that make it? What are kind of the pros and cons of social media in this age? Because you think back, 20, 30 years ago, that wouldn't even be an issue. So how does that kind of help law enforcement, but also maybe hurt them in their investigation?
Well, we have gotten very good in law enforcement at collecting a broad swath of information. We routinely use open source information, things that are freely available. So we do know how to comb through that type of information and vet that against the physical evidence that is present. So for something like this, you've got a shooter. The shooter has an ideology. The shooter probably has something that they're really concerned about, an offense, a grievance that they may have. So there's going to be other information available to investigators that have the opportunity to highlight that grievance, what that might have been, what the motivation was. You're going to have folks that are probably close to that shooter, where he or she will have leaked his intentions. You're going to see some area of pre-planning and preparation. And then you're going to see, that him executing on that is what we saw here today. But it's extraordinarily difficult to leave no evidence and no forensic trace in planning and executing a crime.
And I want to ask you here, when we're talking about, Miguel, Utah Valley University, for if people are not familiar with where this is and even what the university is, it's the state's largest public university. In fact, it has nearly 47,000 students. It's grown to become, again, the largest public university there in Utah, located about 40 miles south of Salt Lake City, which is the state's capital. When it comes to this investigation and bringing in outside resources and just even the measure of response that we're seeing there on the screen, how does that play a role in what we're anticipating to come here?
Well, because it's a public university, there's going to be involvement from probably all types of government-related agencies. I'm sure that the governor is going to want to be involved in some way. He or she, I'm not sure who the governor is, unfortunately, is going to want to have representation from law enforcement at that state level that's going to be present, because something like this happened at the university, or at the university, at the college. You said UVU. Is it a university or a college? But, at that campus, if it's a state-related campus.
It's a university, yes.
Okay, so university, state-related campus, they're definitely going to want to have some presence from the governor's office there.
All right, let's see if we can listen in. It does appear that more witnesses are stepping up to speak.
Henry what?
Henry Dells, sorry.
Spell it so I get it correct.
HENRYDELLS.
DELOS, Dells.
No, DELLS. Yeah, yes, sir.
Great.
Yeah.
Student here?
No, I was just, I run a construction company here, and I heard that Charlie was coming to town, so I came to just ask him a question.
What'd you ask him?
So I really agree with Charlie on a lot of things politically. So the only thing I didn't agree with him on was the concept of religion. And so that was the first question I asked him, was that Mormonism was more historically correct than Protestantism in regards to theology. And we had a nice conversation back and forth. We disagreed, of course. And then we kind of just ended it at that with the historical evidences. He tried to hold to the Bible a lot more in regards to archaeological evidences, which is not really what I was asking. But after I got done talking to him, I really couldn't exit because there's such a big crowd. So I turned around, and like 10 to 20 seconds later, after I got done talking to Charlie, I saw that he was shot in the neck and that he was squirting blood everywhere. But I was piecing things together, and it was really weird because the second guest that I talked to, before I went and asked him the question, what I was going to ask him, he was talking to him about how he was going to ask about transgenderism or something like that. But nothing about shootings. And this is the irony that came to me, which was like, right when he asked that, not like 5-10 seconds later, he was shot. And not only that, right after that, someone confessed to it who had no weapon, which makes me think that it was clearly a setup and that multiple people were involved. So, but prior to that, that's all I saw because everyone was squirming.
Did you see anybody fire a shot?
I didn't see anyone fire a shot. I think it had to come from an elevated position for sure. And I think it had to have been a long rifle based off of how, so Charlie was like 10 yards in front of me from where my microphone was. So even if you have a pistol, if someone was talking about a pistol and all this stuff and shooting, it's hard to just hit an accurate shot with a pistol from 20 yards away. So it sounded like a .22 rifle, to me, my perspective, but it had to have come from an elevated position. It couldn't have been anywhere. Someone would have saw someone pull out a gun, and the person that confessed didn't have anything on him. So they're still looking for the shooter right now, is what a firefighter just told me like about 10 minutes ago. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Sorry I had to go through that.
No, it's all good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, as you see there, I mean, we want to keep bringing you these witness testimonies as they're coming into our newsroom, because really that's the most updated information that we can get based on folks who may have been there and seen what happens. But as you can see, a lot of unconfirmed reports out there. Miguel, as you can see, there's a lot of people who say that they may even feel like the person who is in custody, we know that that's the case. Is there a possibility that there could be the wrong person in custody? Again, officials are not saying that. We're just hearing that from a few witnesses. Want to clear that up. We're not reporting that here on live now, but as an investigation goes, how careful do you have to be when taking somebody into custody to accuse them of a crime like this?
Extremely careful. The first information that happens after an incident is notoriously unreliable. It changes often. So in crisis negotiations, we really try to keep people from reporting things, speculation as it relates to that, because that information almost always changes. And if the information itself doesn't change, the context in which it's provided will absolutely change within a 24, 48-hour period. So there are definitely going to be some challenges that law enforcement's going to have. But the bullet and or bullets that did hit Mr. Kirk will have some physical signatures associated with them based on the type of weapon that was used. So be able to track back where that weapon was purchased and try to get an idea as to where what ammo was it, where it was the ammo purchased. I mean, all that information is out there waiting to be collected by law enforcement while the adversary is actively trying to keep from getting caught.
And Miguel, we continue to gather all the details. We're getting information. This just happened around 12:10 local time, so about 2:10 if you're on the East Coast here. So we're talking about maybe just 2 hours ago. How do you feel, based on your investigation, your skills, your background here, what do you think about the flow of information from law enforcement? Each situation is, of course, a different one, but how do you feel about what we've learned from investigators so far compared to other situations that have been fairly similar?
Well, I think you're going to look at, you need to look at the individuals who are making the comments. When you look at those individuals, look at their roles, they're going to have a different risk tolerance depending on whether or not they want to be first or whether or not they want to be right. And I don't think there's any right answer when it comes to these types of situations, right? You have to resist the compulsion to get out there and start talking before you know what happened. If you look at the standards for law enforcement, especially with how prevalent information and how quickly information travels, I can see law enforcement being reticent to make statements before having things that they can definitively say. So I think that within the next probably 30 or 40 minutes, you'll probably see somebody coming out and giving an hourly update of some sort based on the state of the investigation. If not hourly, then maybe every 2 or 3 hours, just talking about how the investigation is progressing. Right now, law enforcement officials are wrapping their heads around just how prevalent this story is. If this is a local story, you probably don't need hourly updates. If this is a national, possibly international story, they're going to want to start getting into that cadence of doing those types of updates. The other thing, the responding law enforcement agencies, their media preparations are what's being tested now. So I wouldn't really kind of think too much from a law enforcement perspective of the agency itself, but the media folks that they do have that are present, that are currently working now, based on how experienced they are and how just with the tolerance of the office as far as from a risk standpoint, those things are all coming into play right now as they determine what needs to be said and when.
And I have to ask you, Miguel, as we're still seeing some of these law enforcement, I mean, that was a large gun that he's now putting into his car while he's there at the hospital. Is it important that law enforcement remains vigilant even at this hour after this attempt that we now know at this point on Charlie Kirk's life? Do they need to be more vigilant there while he is inside the hospital, still staying on edge at any point?
I think they probably have a very well-established perimeter right now because they know that this is an individual who is a target of violence. It's been completely reframed now what the security situation was and is. So they're not taking any chances as it stands right now. The fact that it's a long gun that we saw getting taken away is not surprising. You would need to have a long gun to be able to make a shot with that level of comfort and accuracy. So that, again, not surprising. We've had two different reports, one saying that he was shot in the heart, another person saying that, that it appeared the wound was in the neck area. So based on where he was hit and the caliber of round that was used, you're going to have some very good ideas as to how survivable that wound or those wounds may be.
And my last question for you, Miguel, right here, as we continue to take this live look outside of the hospital, waiting for more information on the condition of Charlie Kirk. Again, at last check, the Associated Press saying that he is listed there at the hospital in critical condition here. What do we need to be watching for as we see the next hours, really minutes, and days progress in this investigation?
You should be looking for a more positive identification of the shooter. So probably name, description. You'll start to see family members and friends that will be not really coming out of the woodwork, but kind of emerging from the background. You'll probably see that. Of note, this attacker was not looking to get caught and was not attempting suicide by cop either. It appears now that they're actively trying to avoid getting caught. So now I'm starting to think about either potential co-conspirators preceding the event or co-conspirators now after the event has taken place.
All right, as you see there, we certainly appreciate you for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. Miguel Clarke, former FBI special agent, really here to help us break down the very latest. It's a developing situation. As Miguel said, we need to be listening and waiting for that official confirmation. Don't listen to so much of the fodder that's out there on social media or on the internet, as we want to make sure we get the details directly to you. And in fact, we do want to re-rack that for you here on Live Now in case you missed it. I want to give you an update on what we now know. If you're just now joining us, I want to let you know that we are continuing to follow the update here as Charlie Kirk is now in critical condition after he was shot. Now